say your name. That's it, exactly. I mean, boys, they never define who they are. They are, believe me, I'm still a boy. So, understand.
All right, good afternoon. As chairman of the Citrus County School Board, I am calling our regular meeting for the month of July to order. Today is Tuesday, July 10th, and the time is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd like to make a note, we are without one of our members, Ms. Powers is unable to be with us today. Mr. Kennedy has our opening exercises, so Thomas, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd, or Chairman Dodd. Today I wanted to bring up, and you ladies, if you'd come forward, I wanted to bring forward our Citrus County, and I'm referring to it as our ladies delegation, for the 2018, which is the 72nd session of Florida Girls State, which took place last month. For those of you who don't know, this is a highly competitive opportunity, and I just have to note, it's a lot easier to become part of Boys State than it is to become part of Girls State. And I can say that as having a boy who went to Boys State, it's easy compared to going to Girls State. It is highly competitive, and Citrus County was represented by some of the most outstanding ladies, like these two, McKenna Lenore, who is a Crystal River High School emerging senior, rising senior, and Miss Peyton Burdett, who is a rising senior at the other school, LeCanton High School. That's right. Florida Girls State is a hands-on, week-long educational workshop focusing on Americanism and the political process, sponsored by the Florida American Legion Auxiliary. The goal of this program is to help students to better understand the democratic ideas and the part we as individuals play in carrying out these ideals. This program, which has been accredited as a college program to teach high school junior girls about government, politics, and Americanism. These selected high school juniors were selected to become citizens and participate in creating a mythical state of Seminole. The mythical state is divided into 12 cities and 6 counties, and the citizens assigned to each of the nationalist and the federalist parties, experiencing the two-party system much like our own government. Their rigorous schedule included participating in political campaigns, debates, crafting bills, which I'm hoping they'll both talk about today. As the government begins to take shape, these young women become part to understand the democratic society they are a part of. And I had an opportunity to talk to some of these young ladies and about some of the bills they were crafting. And so I wanted you to take an opportunity, each of you, to talk with the audience about your bills, maybe, the experience, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
The experience of Girls State itself
Oh, can you turn on the mic there? I'm sorry. There you go.
The experience itself was just such an amazing experience, and it really helped me grow, not just as a person, but as a citizen, and I learned so much, and it was just such an amazing thing. And my bill, it was to be entitled "An Act Relating to Health Requiring the Acquisition and Stocking of Epinephrine Auto-Injectors by School Clinics or Student Service Departments, allowing for the carrying of epinephrine auto-injectors by students with prescriptions, providing an effective date." But this was really, the purpose was to dramatically decrease chances of a student dying of anaphylactic shock due to an allergic reaction, because students without a prescription for an EpiPen, they still may have a reaction, and this would prevent that, because if a school has unprescribed EpiPens, then they would be able to give them to students without previously known allergens, and it would help save lives.
I really enjoyed Girls' Day as well. I think my favorite part about it was just meeting all the different people, because there's people from Miami, there's people from Pensacola, and it was so interesting to me how different we all lived. I met so many farmers, and I was like, I live in Citrus County and I don't even farm, like that's really cool. And then there's people in Miami who totally do things with water and water skiing, and it was just really interesting to see all these girls who are all striving to be great and to make Florida better. So I really enjoyed that part of it. I was on the executive branch committee, so I didn't get to present my bill, but my bill was about helping students who don't go to college. It's about having a life readiness course in schools, because I think that is so important, and we push a lot of programs. I'm in the IB program, and we have AVID, we have all these great programs that prepare us for college. But there are a lot of students who don't go to college, and maybe they don't have the opportunity to, maybe they go into the military, and even the students who do go to college don't know how to make food. They don't know how to cook, or to do their laundry, or to change their tire. There's certain things that we don't learn. We don't know how to balance a checkbook. I personally struggle in that department. I'm very bad with saving money. It's just not a good thing for me. So I wanted to talk to my peers and see what they felt about it. And there was a lot of similar bills as well. There was a lot of students who felt that they don't really go into the world prepared for the world. They just go prepared for college. So, and even those kids struggle. So it was really interesting to see. Although I didn't get to present mine, other girls had similar bills and they got to present theirs. And one did get signed into law by the governor, which was pretty cool. So yeah, overall it was a great experience. Today, actually just a few minutes ago, I met with Governor Scott, and I got to talk to him about going to Girls' Day and just about being involved in government. It was a really, really neat experience. So I'm very thankful to the American Legion, to the school district, and to the state of Florida for allowing us to have this opportunity. So thank you.
Peyton, what was your role in the executive office?
I was the Commission on Human Relations. So they do like a mock event has happened, and something terrible has happened to Florida, and we had to figure out in a timely manner how to solve that problem without causing other issues such as debt or things like that. So we all had to work together. So I paired with the Commission on Personal Relations, with the Human Relations. We paired with the Department of Family and Children Services and all these different things to figure out how we could solve this mock disaster that happened in Florida. And we did solve it. Worked out good. We all survived, so lots of fun.
And as you can see, yes, McKenna is part of the IB program. McKenna is also part of the YMCA's Youth and Leader. What is it?
Youth in Government?
The Youth in Government, I'm
Yes.
sorry. And you went to theirs, which was kind of similar last summer,
Yes.
and presented bills then. And one of the things I think that you've talked to us in the past about is social studies at the middle school level, which I believe our district even adopted some of your suggestions, or at least what you had suggested at a state level. So well done. McKenna is part of our JORTC program, as well as, if you can hear from her medical stuff, what medical program are you in at Crystal River High School?
The Health Academy, the biomedical track.
And what do you feel about those tracks?
They're also an incredible opportunity for students to grow and learn and see a future that they might have never envisioned for themselves.
And your rank within JORTC this year? What level are you this year?
I'm a PO2, Petty Officer, second class.
I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank the American Legion and the Women's Auxiliary, the Citrus County Sheriff's deputies, Deputy Pollard and Deputy Cyril, for their special escort up there to protect our young ladies and to really support them. Any questions that the board has for these amazing, I'm telling you, the future is bright.
Well, I have a question. So you all were housed on the campus of Florida State, is that right?
Yes.
I remember I had an opportunity. I went to Boise State, and so that's where we were. And So that was a great experience, and it was also, I would also say that the sheriff's office is involved in supporting the students even back when I went. Dwight Giddens drove me up there. Deputy Giddens, yeah. But it's a great program, and truly, the American Legion does offer so much for our students, and this is a great investment. We're troopers, we're FHP troopers, like the counselors. Were they involved in the program there?
Yes, there was six Florida Patrol troopers there, and they were all females. So that was they were very neat. They were super fun, a lot of fun. They were very interesting to talk to, just their stories and things they've done. There was, and two of them had been in the Navy. I want to say the Navy. So it was really interesting to see their outlook on politics as well. It was really neat.
And how many were you that went? From
300. Oh, there's
from Citrus County.
Five.
So 5 out of 300 though was that, and I want to say that's about half the size of Boise State. And Boise State, I want to say, sends about 10, and I think they're around 600 or so. So thank you so much. We're going to go ahead, and if we would rise, and the ladies are going to go and start us in our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both so much for coming and sharing with us. And Ms. Bittner, thank you for escorting them today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Prior to the adoption of the agenda, I would like to add a couple items for consideration on the for good cause. So I would like us to add to your agendas, if you would mark these down under Roman numeral number 4, Educational Services, Scott Hebert. We're going to add the letter M. It's for other sites, and it's to approve the affiliation agreement between the Citrus County School Board, WTC, or Withlacoochee Technical College, and Seven Rivers Medical Center. So again, item 4M will be approve affiliation agreement between the school board, Withlacoochee Technical College, and Seven Rivers Medical Center. And then we're going to add Roman numeral number 5, E. We're going to add an E. That's under school support services with Mr. Bishop. It's a risk management area with Sherry Cernich. To approve the school resource officer contract beginning July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019. Sheriff Prendergrass is going to be with us this afternoon, and I told him when he arrives we'll finish our item of business that we're on, and we will allow him time to discuss this contract and what needs to be done. Members, if we get into specifics, Mr. Bradshaw has advised that he will let us know if we need to go into a closed session if it deals with security matters. So obviously we may get into some questions from the sheriff, and we may have to go into a closed session. So audience, if that does happen, we'll have to ask you all to step outside until the closed session is finished. Mrs. Himmel, you also had...
And also, if you all will look, you don't need to look, but on the consent agenda, item 5B, here is a new list of staff members. It changes nothing on the agenda request. It is where we're approving petty cash disbursements to assign food services personnel, and some of the names have changed or been moved, so I just wanted to have that. Mr. Bradshaw said we can still leave it on the consent. We want to make sure we have that.
All right, board members, is there anyone that would like to pull this off the consent agenda, or are we all good? Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Okay, having those items in mind, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda with the add-ons.
Second?
All right, motion by Ms. Bryant, second by Ms. Counts to adopt the agenda as recommended by the superintendent with the changes that were made here. Is there any discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. All right, next up is our citizen comment time, and we have citizen comments at the start of the meeting for any items on the agenda, and then we have a time certain citizen comment at 5:15 for any other items that need to be brought to the board, as well as a third time for citizen comments at the end of the regular business meeting. So are there any green cards? Has anyone requested to address the board? Okay. Would anyone like to address the board? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 3, the approval of the consent agenda.
Move that we approve the item consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Count, second by Mr. Kennedy to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. And at this time, we would like to recognize our donations.
We have two donations. Approve the $500 donation to Canto High School from Matrix Coast Friends of Blues Incorporated. Approve the $612 donation to Crystal River Middle School from Red Brand's Homegrown Program. That's a total of $1,112 donations.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the community's support, and those donors, their gifts are very much appreciated. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 4, Educational Services. Scott Hebert. This was item G is a poll that I have made because of a perceived conflict that I want to advise the board on. And prior to discussing this matter, I would like to inform the board and the general public that I perceive a potential conflict of interest, and that my wife, Laura Dodd, is a part-time contractual employee of Achievement Rehab, and as such, I will abstain from voting pursuant to Florida Statute 112.3143, as I perceive a potential conflict in this matter. I'd also like to make a note to the board that my daughter, Melanie, also did a volunteer type internship there, and she's entering into an occupational therapy program. So that that too will allow me, or will cause me, to abstain from voting on this matter as a perceived conflict of interest.
Move approval of contract with Achievement Rehabilitation through therapeutic intervention for physical, occupational, and speech language therapies.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Ms. Bryant to approve the contract with Achievement Rehab through therapeutic intervention for physical, occupational therapy, and speech language therapists.
Congratulations on her having an internship. That's awesome.
Yes, she's starting the program, a doctoral program in
Oh,
occupational therapy, so it's good for her to get some experience in too. So. Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion? All right, members, 3 of you will be voting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 3-0. Our next item, item L, Dr. Hebert, is the discussion on K-12 virtual.
I would like to, before we invite the K-12 representatives that are here today up to the board, I just want to kind of recap everybody where we are, so we kind of know what we're talking about with the K-12 presentation. At the June workshop, staff and K-12 presented information concerning an online school K through 8th grade option for our district. The company K-12 recently provided answers to the board's questions from that meeting, as well as the requested marketing plan for the proposed school, and I believe that was all provided to you ahead of time. The K-12 product was originally presented to staff as an option for possibly generating revenue, as well as providing the district with an opportunity to have our own online school. We're bringing this to the board for discussion and direction. We're asking, why would we consider this? Parents in the state of Florida have numerous options to choose from when it comes to educating their children. Traditional public school, private school, homeschool, online schools, or charter schools. This is an opportunity for our district to have an online option, capturing a segment of the population we might lose to an online option. The last meeting, K-12 presented the financial proposals being offered, and we discussed some of the risks that were involved. A major concern is this will be considered a district school. The students that enroll in this program will be Citrus County students. The success or failure of these additional students will reflect on our district rating. The students who enroll in this school will come from all over the state of Florida, and ultimately, we will be responsible for their education and providing the appropriate level of services. K-12 feels confident that their staff will handle the workload with little impact on our departments. Much of this will be determined by the enrollment numbers and the quality of staff K-12 employs. There is also concern that K-12 will potentially hire away teachers from our classrooms. This is a very real possibility, but one that exists regardless of which county K-12 ends up in. We lose teachers to online education options every year. We are also aware of the numerous negative consumer reviews regarding the K-12 curriculum in several other states. The representatives from K-12 can address those issues. We are aware that several board members have expressed a great deal of concern with this entire concept. We understand this program is not a guarantee. There are risks with this or any other program. The district would be taking on the liability issues associated with an additional school, but it could also benefit if the school is successful. There are also some small financial incentives for the board to consider. Our next steps. If the consensus of the school board is the financial incentives and the potential benefits from an online school outweigh the potential risk, then we recommend that we proceed cautiously with the contract, allowing us an easy opt-out if the first year does not go well. If the board does not desire to move forward with this option, we will not move forward with the contract negotiations. At this point, I would like to invite the K-12 representatives over here to respond and answer any other further questions from the school board.
Hello again. I'm Sharon Williams, and I brought a new character with me that is a great colleague.
Randall Greenway. And just a little quick background, if I may. This is my 34th year in working with school districts in public education. My first 16 years were in the traditional public classroom as a middle school teacher, high school principal, and then worked with the Arkansas Department of Education, so I've got that state level overview of these opportunities. And then I was the founder of the Arkansas Virtual Academy. So I've gone through this from the operational side of being the lead administrator for that program, as well as a parent whose children have been both in traditional public school, 4 years in the virtual school, and then back into a traditional public school. So I've seen the transition, so I can look at this from a number of different perspectives. And I've worked with school districts and charter schools in about 16 states to have going through these types of discussions for the last, I guess I've been in this role for the last 10 years of helping districts sort through the issues of what a virtual school is, how they operate. And so today I'd like to answer any of the questions and concerns that you have that you previously discussed, as Mr. Hebert raised. I will say that I view this as a win-win-win opportunity. It's a plus for K-12 to have a new partner. It's a plus for the parents and the students who are looking for this type of opportunity, many who desperately need it, and it's a win for the school districts. I've seen many school districts across the years who have been very pleased with this opportunity. So I'll pause and answer any questions that you have.
Yes, Ms. Bright.
So your children were in virtual school during middle school?
Yes, they were. They started in elementary and into the middle school and then transitioned back. We actually started after being in the Little Rock School District, in the magnet school system. We had a variety of different concerns. My wife had one set of concerns. Hers were more social, mine were academic, being a former principal. And we made a decision to pull them out in first and third grade and kept them in and put them back into the traditional public school. I believe that it was fifth and seventh grade.
I taught middle school for 28 years. That's why we were right in on that.
Yeah, it was a wonderful transition back. They both went back in beautifully and did just exceptionally well. It's a, now I'm a big believer in who we are and what we do. K-12 is a great company to work with. I've been with the company for, this is my 16th year now. The company is about 19 years old, so I came in fairly early. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't really believe in the product that we provide and the services we provide for families and for students.
All right, any other questions?
I'm impressed that you answered the language, and I think that's a plus because we don't have teachers that can offer some of these languages, Latin and German and Chinese, and kids are having to go to Rosetta Stone and pay quite price for it. But one of our concerns was some of the references from some of the other states, because we're getting a late start for this year. And I know that you said something about a guarantee for the first year regardless of the enrollment, but your projected enrollment is 900. for this first year through K through 8. And I appreciate the marketing plan. I think you've covered it very, very well. But have you got another state that started this late and it was successful during its first year? I mean, we're starting talking July, and
We're very good at moving very quickly to get programs operated. Obviously, the more lead time you have, the better opportunity, particularly when it comes to hiring and training teachers. We are experts at training teachers. We train over 4,500 teachers every year. Many of those are new teachers to the system. I will say one of the things that we've done on training, a little side note, is we've done a very unique partnership with Southern New Hampshire University. We've invested a considerable amount of time the past couple of years working with them. They're one of the nation's leaders in online education at the higher ed level, as well as a traditional campus for a small liberal arts college. But they have done a mixed method review study, quantitative and qualitative approach, for the past year, looking at a number of our schools, and they've done focus group with parents, they've done interviews and observations with teachers, they've met with our administrators, they've visited 5 different schools, and they've come up with 5 different key dimensional areas, with 61 core competencies that that quality teachers have. And so we're working with them to take a training program that we already have online and face-to-face for our teachers and ramp it up to a whole nother level, where they are looking at the best practices of what our teachers do. How do you teach in an online program? And that'll be rolled out eventually. The goal is that Southern New Hampshire will offer the nation's first master's degree in online teaching specifically. And so it's a very unique partnership that we've done with them and focus on that. But then, to get back to your question, is yes, we can operate these schools very quickly. I think in Georgia, to show the demand for it, we opened up a school fairly late in the school year. In the first 6 to 8 weeks, we had 4,500 applications for new students. That's a big demand to launch one that large. I think that you're looking at a kindergarten through 8th grade program initially, and with a smaller count, about 900, that's very easy for us to do. We actually I opened up a program with a partnership with a small school district in Indiana last year. We signed the contract 2 or 3 weeks before the first day of school. We got a little bit late start with the online portion of it, but within 4 weeks, we had a school up and running, and we operated the first year with 2,000 students in that new school in Indiana.
And then I remember, Mrs. Williams, you gave us a very nice picture of how you run the classroom with your teachers and the interaction and the Skyping and the discussion with the students. So it's not a one-to-one, it's an actually discussion classroom situation through the computer. So I don't know, I think we've been assured that it's if we've got that opt-out, I don't really see why we can't go ahead with pursuing a contract. We need a motion for that.
I have some concerns. I have some concerns not about entirely K-12 or as a virtual school. Virtual schools are great options. My own children have used them. I'm sure they'll continue to use them. Some of the ladies in our audience use them. The concern that I have is that our staff is already stressed. Our staff is already doing the jobs of multiple individuals that we are already not able to fill those positions because we don't have the financial resources to do that. So we're taking on the need of a school that we really don't have the need for because we already are providing those virtual options to Citrus County students. This really is coming to us because the idea is that it might be an economic benefit to us. That's the only reason we're having a conversation about this, because our staff has been probably overly protective of saying they don't want to. I don't want to make our staff the bad guys, but I don't get the impression that our staff is thrilled to take on this project. And it has nothing to do with you all. If it were any other organizations, I would feel the same way. But they'll do whatever we tell them to. And they'll do that exceptionally. I have great respect for our staff, but right now we are asking them to do so much. I'm concerned about particularly opening ourselves up liability-wise, particular to ESE issues. As a former ESE student, as having worked with many parents, they are passionate, and that sometimes that passion turns into federal lawsuits regarding 501 practices and how we're accommodating those. I understand that you all would indemnify us, but our staff would somewhere end up having to be involved because they are still Citrus County students. The rating right now that you have from the state is roughly a B school. Even if it stays a B school, it wouldn't necessarily positively or negatively impact us. So it doesn't really have any impact to us if it stays a B school. But with those number of students, if it did drop to a C school, we're now taking that on as a new liability for what financial benefit? Because if our goal is that we're trying to raise revenue, I think that we should then say to staff, go out and explore revenue generating options for us. And I'm not sure that this is one that we know will have impact on our staff. Our staff's talked to us about that. That's where my concern is as a board member, is putting staff in a position where they are already trying to meet the needs with reduced staff that they have. And that's really where I'm at with this. Yes, there are some concerns. Consumer Affairs doesn't give it the greatest rating. They don't also give Florida Virtual the greatest rating, in fairness. So I don't want to say that necessarily that means that they're getting any worse a rating than anyone else, but that becomes something that if our staff has to address those issues where there's a parent complaint, they already, when they spend one phone call with a parent issue, Mr. Mullins tied up for a day, sometimes working on different issues, and that's one local parent. Imagine us now taking on a minimum 900, and potentially, I believe some of this was into the thousands. That's things that we would be taking on, and again, the benefit I think that we're talking about is purely for the potential of their having revenue. I have no disrespect for K-12. I appreciate because they're providing our K-5 services right now, and I'm appreciative of that. The language options, I don't know that they're really a benefit to our students because it's not high school. And really language is going to be a high school one, and we're limiting this to a K-8 option is what we're looking to offer this school. So that's where my reservations are at as a board member.
May I offer a few thoughts?
Sure.
First, the fact that the special education American Disabilities concerns, we've operated programs in 33 plus states and have rarely run across any major issue with special education. We serve a significant population of students who have come to us, particularly because of this environment fits their needs, whether it be food allergies or physical disabilities. We run a full gamut of special education classifications of why students choose this option as the best educational setting for them. When we do have an issue that pops up, special ed wise, we take care of that issue and we guarantee full compliance with the issue and we'll resolve the matter. We have a national director of special education, national director of national special ed staff. We have a regional special ed staff and then our local special ed staff. And we share best practices and we have staff that we can bring in from either other schools and other states with special ed directors with years and years of service. So you're always going to have some type of an issue dealing with that population, that particular area of education, but we're experts in dealing with it, and compliance has never been an issue in any of the states that we deal with. So I'm completely confident that we can alleviate any concerns that you have in that area. In terms of the staff, we customize these programs to meet the desires of the school district that we're working with. If a district wants to be heavily engaged, have their special ed director or their academic director or their finance staff into the weeds and involved in these programs, we're happy to build that type of relationship. If, on the other hand, you have a district that's concerned about understaffing and the extra weight that it's going to put on their staff, we can carry the load. Certainly there has to be some back and forth. Your special ed director has to work with our special ed director, review processes, make sure that the things that we're delivering for you meet your expectations and your policies. So there's a little bit of lifting on the front end, but once it gets up and running, it's really a matter of how much do you want to be engaged, because we can run these turnkey with almost no burden on the staff. So it's really an issue of how much does your staff want to be involved. But we can provide both your administration and your board with all the reports, at whatever, customized reports or intervals that you want that information to assure that there's a program that's running transparently and running in compliance with both state, federal, and district policy.
May I ask one question?
Yes.
Do you have another school district in the United States where you are running the school's virtual option and it not set up as a charter school?
Yes, we have a number of those. Just recently with the one I mentioned in Indiana, they enrolled an additional 2,000 students this past year with the Union School Corporation in Modoc, Indiana.
And those are Union School District students?
Yes, they are.
And this would be a public school that you're suggesting in Citrus County?
That's correct. And so
as a public school, Mr. Bradshaw, who would be legally and ultimately academically responsible to the students that are enrolled? That's my problem.
That's correct.
And so while I know you're going to provide assurances, while I know you can provide experts, we're still on the hook. At the end of the day, we're putting this district on the hook for that. And that's really where I'm at.
I'd be happy to put you in touch with a couple of other superintendents or board members of districts that we work with to answer that question. I personally cannot think of, and it was 16 years with the company, I cannot think of a lawsuit against a district or an issue that resulted in any type of concerns other than one union issue in which there was a rift between the union members and the local school district, and it was a state level issue of how the program was running. So that was resolved satisfactorily. But as far as a liability or a burden on the district, I personally cannot think of anything that would be an example that's created a challenge for the school district.
All right, Ms. Bryant.
So your teachers, how is their retirement? Are they still part of the FRS or anything in Florida?
They're not.
They're not.
They're employed by K-12.
But tell me about their retirement.
We have a 401k plan
Okay.
that is available. And I'm not sure about Florida specifically. I can look into it. We negotiate both ways with districts. Some districts we work with prefer to hire the teachers because they want them into the state's teacher retirement system. They want to take on those benefits. Most districts we work with say we'd rather not deal with as much of the evaluation and particularly the HR aspect of employment, and they defer to us to hire those teachers. I'd have to double check on the state laws in Florida, but we negotiate that both ways. Again, we're good partners, and we're happy to customize agreements that meet your needs.
I've got a question. What is the 5-year projected growth? What's the 5-year plan? Where are we at 5 years on your projections?
Have you seen?
No, I think we only did the two. That's what you're asking for, but I would think that, if you added 500 to each year, that's probably a safe, pretty conservative number if you wanted more, but that would probably be a pretty conservative number for you.
And so that would be what?
So I think and you probably had the numbers in front of you better than I do, but I think we were at like 12 or 1,300 the second year. And so we just add 5 to each one of those. We provided the numbers for the first 2 years for you.
29,
28.
And there's a difference between what the demand is out there. There's a huge demand for these programs, and I'll go back to Mr. Kennedy's question about charter versus district as well. With a charter school, it's a public school that cannot turn away students. It has to take all comers. And quite often those schools will see a higher percentage of very challenging students who are looking at that program as a school of last resort. For whatever reason, their previous educational setting has failed them. It hasn't worked, and they're coming to this as another option. What we're seeing with a lot of the district partnerships is that doesn't necessarily play out the same way. There are programs of the district. It is a program, just like any other program that you have parameters about qualifications sometimes that students have to get into that particular academic or extracurricular program. And so we have districts in other states that have set stricter requirements about students and that get into the program. That one, it restricts growth. It also guarantees a little bit of higher engagement is the goal, making sure there's students who fit the program. Because that's always a question that comes up. Online education for every student. A lot of students get into it thinking it's an easy out. This is going to be a breeze. They find out it's not. The curriculum is rigorous. The teachers are demanding. There's assignments that still have to be turned on, deadlines that have to be met. And so I've seen programs, for example, that have put in that one example is a 45-day compliance rule, that within the first 45 days they must be 100% compliance. They must have attended every online instructional session. They must have responded to teachers' emails and phone calls. They must have participated in their required meetings with their teachers and staff. They must have answered, they must have turned in all their assignments in time. And if they're not in compliance and showing that they're fully engaged in the program, then under the policies of that district program, they've, another district that I'm thinking of has been able to remove students to ensure that the students in the program are truly academically engaged. Those are policies that a charter school cannot set. You cannot simply remove a student from a charter school for non-participation any more than you could remove a student simply because he comes to school and sleeps through every class and doesn't turn in any assignments. You can't kick that child out of school. So as a program, you've got the ability to set some parameters and policies, and we can bring to you ideas and suggestions that'll help build a program that you'll be proud of and you'll be very confident that the students are engaged and doing well academically.
The marketing plan looks like it targets pretty much, and as it's been presented, all students pretty much outside of Citrus County. Wouldn't exclude that we couldn't have kids in Citrus County. So we already have virtual programs available to our students. This is not a program that is necessarily to benefit our students other than through a financial generation of income, with a risk of the liability, the demand on our staff. So again, virtual is a great option. It's a wonderful program, but we're actually talking about going into the business of starting a for-profit school for Citrus County. That's really what we're talking about doing. And I'm not sure that that's really something that I think is in the best interest of our board.
I've got another question about the contract. Where are we, because this is not an approval agenda item. Where are we on the contract, Mr. Bradshaw?
Early.
Mr. Bradshaw's worked some on the contract and has worked with K-12's attorney also. But we are here today to find out what direction you all want us to move towards or not towards the contract, because there's no reason for Mr. Bradshaw to continue with the contract if you all are going to tell us not to move forward. So that's where we are.
It would be a very detailed contract. Because to me, it is basically almost like a charter school, where you want to have, because if
But we get the grade as opposed to the charter school
Correct.
that actually has their grade independently.
Correct. Because I don't, unless the school district here wants to say that you handle everything and we handle nothing, which I don't think, because they're still going to be our students, I think we have an obligation to be involved in all aspects of it. So it's a very detailed contract.
You know, Dr. Hebert had said he had I just kind of wrote down some notes as he was advising the board that he's a major concern that it's a district school, that ultimately we will be responsible for the students enrolled, and that there was concern that teachers leave our district and there were negative consumer reviews. So I guess to me that's not a real strong recommendation that we pursue this as a board. And so I'm a little hesitant, to be quite honest with you, that with that kind of direction, I am cautious on moving forward. I like the idea of us being innovative and doing some things differently, and I like the idea that there could be a profit here for the district. But the risk that we take on another school that will get a school grade that could reflect negatively on our county, on Citrus County, who we were elected to represent in the school district, and setting policy and procedure, making sure our schools are the best that they can be. We're turning over something to a private company that's going to have a potentially negative impact on the overall perspective of the district, how people view the district. And so that has a concern for me. So, you know, the $200,000 in the first year and the 6% that you came to in a 2-year contract, those are all very good things. And that's where I'm trying to weigh this out right now.
I'm happy, as I've mentioned before, I'm happy to put you in touch with some other board members. I've heard these concerns before. It's serious, you're doing your due diligence. I'd be happy to put you in touch with other superintendents and board members who had these same conversations. I recall standing in front of one board, and the chairman just shook his head and said, I just don't get it. And he said, well, my father taught me that when something sounds too good to be true, watch out. And we finally convinced him that it was something worth taking the risk on, and convinced him that, well, he came back and said, you've done everything you've ever promised. And I've heard that time and time again, from boards, from superintendents, and I can give you a number of references. Be happy to put you in touch with other board members, and I think that you will hear. When K-12 promised something, they delivered. They didn't tell us anything that wasn't true, and they're happy with the program. So I understand your fears. If you want to take a little more time to speak with some individuals, I'll get you a list of folks to call and talk with.
Mr. Bradshaw, because this would be a public school too, we have very broad sunshine and public records laws in the state of Florida. And while certain student records would be exempt, operational records would be within the availability of having significant public records requests.
There would be a section that they have to comply with public records law.
And we at some point have to have our staff then that goes through that on just a simple public records request. I mean, that we can spend hours of our staff time just doing a simple public records request. And again, those are the things that Florida's operation is different from other states. And the way we have to operate, again, if you are a public school, right now you're operating as a private entity. So you're not under the same laws that you would be if you then became part of our public school system.
And I understand that, because yes, we are a private entity, publicly traded information is reported to the SEC, and we're simply a vendor, like any of the other vendors that you contract with. We're providing a product and a service. When it comes to the schools that we work with, and the staff that's involved in the schools is completely familiar with all federal and state requirements, and we have done this in 33 states, including in Florida as well, so very familiar with sunshine laws and open meeting requirements and acts, and again, not an issue.
Ms. Bryant, did you have any other comments? I mean,
I was just thinking about the comment about the languages, and I think that the younger you learn the language, the better it'll be for you. I know that
It just won't meet the requirements for college.
that's right.
And that's really what I mean by that, is
Yeah, I
for
want
many
to-
of it, it's great, it's a great course to
I
have.
want them to learn the language.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I ask that because I have a grandnephew that's already fluent in Spanish. He's just got out of 3rd grade. That's because he started in kindergarten.
Our foreign language programs are phenomenal. We, years ago, we originally had our own small program. We purchased a company out of Utah that provided a lot of the foreign language instruction for the Mormon students who were going international for their mission work, and merged that, took their best practices with ours. And then about 7 years ago, we partnered with Middlebury College, which is the nation's premier expert in foreign language instruction. And our staff and their staff have worked for the last 5 years on tweaking and improving our foreign language program. And so now it's referred to as the K-12's Middlebury Interactive Foreign Languages, and I would put it up against anybody bar none with our foreign language program.
Well, would the direction be then that we should probably ask you for that list of superintendents and board members and staff members? Because our staff is very, very good.
Happy to put you in touch with.
I don't want them burdened with, because I didn't understand that I understood that you were going to do it all. You were going to enforce an attendance policy, that if the kids weren't doing their work, they were going to be excused from the program, and it wouldn't burden our staff. So maybe if you could give us that list and give us a week or two to look at that and have
And I can focus on school district partnerships where it is not a charter school, but a partnership just like this.
And then we can give Mr. Bradshaw and Superintendent Hannawala a direction to go from there after our staff had a chance to maybe talk with some of your groups. Is that good?
Well, I guess I was under the impression staff was wanting direction of whether this board wants to move forward or not.
We're not gonna start having Mr. Bradshaw work on a contract and spend the money on a contract if we're not going that direction. It
I
might be
think we
wasted.
still have more questions that we'd like to be assured.
So we're not gonna begin that process unless we have clear direction from the board that this is the route you wanna go.
Well, I mean, again, my question comes back to, the superintendent really and Dr. Hebert. I mean, as far as, is this something that you want us to pursue? I mean, if there was a strong recommendation, I would probably be working on this. But I am concerned in the light of what Dr. Hebert said, in the comments that he made, certainly were more in the negative to me than in the positive.
Dr. Hebert's only sharing the facts that were shared with us. We get facts shared with us from Consumer Affairs and reports, and we're just being upfront and honest and sharing that with the board. That's what Dr. Hebert's doing. We're sharing information that most board members have already seen, and he's just bringing that out that, yes, that information exists. So if you want to question K-12 about it, you can do that at this time. I mean, it's not, my staff's job is not to defend K-12 or defend any of those consumer reports, and they're not doing that.
But I do think it's fair that if we enter into an agreement with K-12, it will add additional burden to our staff.
Yes, and to what extent it's going to be different if there's 30 students there as opposed to 30,000 students.
But 900 is the size of a large middle school for us. So 900 in the first year is us adding a middle school to Citrus County. And while, yes, it may be privately operated, it doesn't mean, we have resources we have to put towards Renaissance, and it's privately operated. If we have any incidents with there while they operate it, we still have to provide certain levels of services because they are our students. So we're talking about 900 the first year. We're talking about adding maybe 1,400 by the second year, and then if you're talking 500 each, we're at the size of a high school within the second year. We're in the size of the largest school in Citrus County by the third year.
The number one area where we've seen an impact of district staff usually comes into data entry, the initial enrollment and reporting into your state reporting system. And so what I think Mr. Stewart, who was here previously, may have guaranteed is that we would pay as part of the agreement for you to hire additional staff and at our cost, including HR benefits for that individual, whatever the demand is, if it takes 1 or 2 additional people to be able to manage that additional enrollment registration aspect. That's the number one area in the front end is, yes, those enrollments come in, getting those new students into the system, and then your reports throughout the year.
I think I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think he needs to give us the numbers and we need to call and talk to these folks.
I think Mr. Kennedy summed it up earlier. The question for the board is, do you want to be in the business? Do you want to be in this business or not? Yes, we have an online option for students, so that part is being taken care of. This is a revenue generating opportunity. It's a shame that as a public school, that's what we have to do now. We have to not only survive on what we get, but now we have to go out and try to make some money so that we can end up educating the students that we have. It's unfortunate that we're in that position. That's where we're at. That's the state we live in.
And my concern is if what we're trying to do is find $200,000 in new revenue, then I would say that we need to go to staff and say, look at options of opportunities for us to raise $200,000. Because that's really why, the only reason I feel like we're having the presentations. We're already in business with K-12 because you provide our K through 5, our elementary ed already. We have Seminole County, we have Florida Virtual, we have Edgenuity. We even have a hybrid of our own staff that sits there and does social media as well as driver's ed for our students and provides that. So we're meeting the needs of Citrus County students. This is the business of starting a school purely for a profiting business. And I'm not sure that that's our role.
I'll offer one other perspective on it as well. And I go back to when I was a principal, and I always ask my staff when we made any decision, why are we doing this for the children? What's good for the students? Now, I mentioned earlier, this is a win-win-win. It's a good, yes, it's a win for you financially. It's a win for you in innovation. And so you're partnering with a very innovative company in K-12. It's a win for us. We have a new customer. Not shying around the fact that we are a for-profit vendor. And it's a win for the families. There are a number of parents and students who choose this full-time online program for a wide number of reasons. We say we have 120,000 students. I say 120,000 reasons. And those kids who have health issues, they can't attend class on a regular basis. Those who are advanced academically or who are looking to advance their academic career faster than can move in the regular classroom. And the list goes on and on, from Olympic athletes to actors and actresses to the kids that just a little bit behind in the class moves too fast for. I could go on and on by the number of kids, but there's a lot of families, 120,000 across the country, have been chosen to enroll in programs that we've partnered with school districts. And we are meeting the needs of those families, those unique needs. So let's not forget that as well. There's families out there, and I'm not familiar with your online program that you have. I know that many of the online programs that are operated in states and by districts tend to be maybe only high school only. They're doing dual credit stuff, or they're looking primarily at students who are taking single courses. Now, your program, I apologize for not being familiar with it, but it may be serving the full-time enrollment. But there is that segment of students out there, and it's significant. It's up to 1% of the student population in any state that is looking for not a single course option to supplement what they're already doing, but a full-time enrollment option in a virtual school, because it is the best educational setting for them for that myriad of reasons.
All right, thank you. So we have a meeting scheduled on July 31st to approve our tentative budget. We could have this, we're short a board member now. Mr. Bradshaw, if we were to get that information or have some information from you all, that you give us some information we can follow up on, then we could put that on the agenda for a vote on that date. Would that give time? What's our time factor here for?
I think at that time you just direct staff to move forward, with the preparation of the contract.
Is that what we want to do, or?
We wouldn't have a contract, Mr. Dodd, at that time, unless you direct us to prepare a contract.
I think we have to be honest, to say again, do we want to be in the business for the only purpose of generating income?
Right.
That's really, that is not necessarily benefiting our students any differently than they currently are now.
Yeah, and I don't think we made any bones about even asking you to come here, that it was a source of income. Where all of our public schools are strapped, because our only income comes from the county and from the state, and they seem to be taking more and more every year. I'm giving less and expecting more with the dollar. So I looked at it strictly as an income producing activity. It's in lieu of advertising our school buses. I understand that we provide all these services, and that's. Do we need your service? Absolutely not. Do we need more money in our coffers to provide for our classrooms? Yep, we do.
So, Ms. Bryant, which way are you leaning on this one? I mean, I guess, Ms. Counts, you're kind of not.
I can go either way.
Right.
I want to talk to the people. I want staff to talk to the people that he gives us the numbers, and then I'll make up my mind.
Okay, I'm kind of in that boat too. So I want to get some more information. So and talk to some people before I make.
So we will present that at the July 31st.
Yes,
information.
I think so.
Information.
I mean, I'm very hesitant. I'll say that going in right now. I mean, it's going to take a lot to change my mind, but I'm interested still. So.
I'll get that list to
And
superintendent
also ask them
this
to
week.
provide me the list of the attorneys who worked on the contracts or whatever you want.
I'm sure you'd like some attorneys as well.
The list of the attorneys who worked on the contracts for the.
Mr. Dodd, do you want that to come back to approve moving forward as a motion, or just a discussion again?
I would like it to be in a motion. I mean, if we approve to move forward or not. We're not approving the contract right now, right? I mean, Mr. Bradshaw obviously might have some more information for us, but we're not dealing with it.
Well, they need to see a copy of the contract.
Yeah.
And us to run through staff and make sure everything's correct, so.
Yeah. Those will be additional billable hours, I'm assuming. I mean, that's not against you, Mr. Bradshaw. I'm just wanting our staff to understand we are going to have to spend more money for the next month to make this decision. So we just need to be clear, we are going to spend more money to do that.
But we're not negotiating the contract.
No, what I would want to do is just speak with other attorneys and about how it's, the contract that they entered into, and, get some basic feedback from them. Then
Right.
there would be some billable time in there. But
No, and I'm, it's not you. I'm thinking of, I've got Mr. Hebert, who's starting the schools. I've got Miss Douglas, who's going to be, Mr. Rowland, who's already, Miss Stanley. They're already getting ready for the new school year, and we're going to be adding to that work. So we need to be very blunt that if we're not really going in this direction, we are adding more to our staff, and that's a concern that I think we just need to be aware of. And again, board members, I'm just one board member, but I just think you need to realize that we're punting for the third time. We're asking for a third time to punt.
This is only the second.
This will be, but it'll be a third meeting that we'll have it. So you're right. You're right. On that football meeting. So you're right. Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. Thank you, Mr. Guy.
Okay, so are we all clear on that? We're all in agreement with that? Okay, so that's what we.
I'll get you the information this week.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move into our discussion on the item we added on risk management with Sherry Cernich to approve the school resource officer contract. And I see Sheriff Prendergrass and his staff is here. Welcome. And so we'll get into this discussion.
And before I called Sheriff Prendergast up, I had written a statement because I thought I was going to be called out of town today, but I don't have to leave yet. So I'm going to read that to the board so that we're clear on things that we need to get direction on from our board. Okay? The school board's direction at the last meeting was to pay the sheriff's office the remaining payment of $27,531.31 contingent on the sheriff providing full-time coverage for the month of July. On July 2nd, I checked with our schools and the SRO coverage was not complete at all sites. I contacted the sheriff's office and requested a meeting with Sheriff Prendergast. I went over that day. We discussed the communication issues between our two agencies as well as a path to move forward. I'm hopeful with a more detailed contract, confusion will be avoided in the future. The sheriff is here today requesting the school board pay him the remaining $27,531.31 for last school year. In return, the sheriff will, according to his attorney's email, provide protection to keep schools safe and secure during the summer session while complying with Florida law, as long as the school district will provide him with discretion to devise a plan that will do so without requiring a full-time SRO present at each campus from bell to bell. The sheriff has also agreed to provide full-time coverage for summer school during the month of June 2019. We are committed to notify the sheriff's office at least 30 days before the end of the 2019 school year to identify the summer school locations. This has been a very difficult process to get where we are today. Our current relationship with the sheriff's office can be best described as a very formal relationship. If the school board decides not to agree to the sheriff's terms, it is clear we will not have a signed contract for 2018-19 school year. We are a month away from our first day of school. Our options are very limited. I strongly recommend to the board today to agree to the sheriff's terms and allow us to make the final June payment as well as the scheduled July payment. This will hopefully ensure that our schools are covered and we follow the law for this school year. I can see no value in continuing to debate what we expected versus what the sheriff expected for this summer. Our summer sessions are near complete. It is time to move on and do what is right for our kids and make sure we comply for the fall. If this board is not pleased with the level of service this year, we can discuss other options in the future. But for now, I would urge you to consider the end result. We want our children protected this fall, and the only way we will get a contract is to agree to the sheriff's terms.
All right, very good. Ms. Cernich, did you want to approach the board now, or? Okay. Sheriff, if you'd like to come up, and I'm sure we'll have some questions for you, but.
Well, the sheriff is coming up, we're approving his contract I haven't seen. Okay, because there were some in that other draft that I wouldn't agree with.
Mr. Bradshaw is still working on the contract for next school
So
year.
we're not approving a contract today.
To,
Okay.
well, I think what Ms. Himmel asked you for was permission to write the final check for June, which is the $27,000 that we talked about at the last board meeting,
And the full payment.
and then the full payment in July, provided we have a contract in place before the end of July. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the question, I guess, at hand dealt with the coverage of both the schools July 1 for summer
You all were
school.
very clear in the last meeting on what that money was contingent on. So when I met with the sheriff and we talked about coverage, and July or June coverage that's a mute issue, and in July we're almost through with summer school. So I'm encouraging you all today to allow us to release the June payment. And then the July payment goes along with the SRO contract.
But even with that, I mean, we still have a few weeks of summer school, right? Isn't it?
Elementary summer school is complete. We do have high schools remediation still going on in some of our pre-K, Scott.
And basically, then the sheriff has said, as long as it's at his discretion, he'll cover those schools
Correct.
For this July. But then next July, you're saying in the contract,
Next June.
next June of 19, it's going to be awarded full coverage in the contract.
And in fairness to Sheriff Prendergast, I will make that commitment, and we will probably give them notice before the 30 days of the end of the school year. We start talking about summer school in January, and by February, we're pretty well set on where we are going to have summer school, unless there's some major,
Hurricane.
well, or
You
test
said
score that comes through, or something that happens with our test score. So
I think
we can
Ginger
get
is
him
on the
cleaned up.
list of 2018 hurricanes. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go back and double check. with Captain Carlisle.
That was good, Sheriff.
I was the only negative vote at the last meeting on the 27,000 because we didn't have June coverage. So I'm just trying to explain, because I don't want to have anybody not know where my thinking was. But if you took 5 deputies that came into our schools on March 14th and then left on May 25th or 24th, the $96,359.59 in my mathematics came to $418.96 per day. And we didn't get coverage in June, and that's the reason I voted no the last time, because I thought that was just too much for 5 deputies.
We did have there were, coverage was,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I'm
would
not
say
sure
it's
there were
full.
other
It wasn't
costs
full, I
besides the
wouldn't say
5
we didn't.
deputies, but it wasn't explained. It was just we put 5 deputies, and we were very happy to have them. You pulled them off the road, and we appreciate that. But when I did the math on where that $96,000 went for, 46 days of coverage in our school from March 14th to May 24th. For those 46 days, 5 deputies cost us a lot of money. And we just heard that we're trying to make money.
And my concern here now is that, I mean, I want to move forward on this and get this done, but yet we don't have a contract. Is that right, Mr. Bradshaw? So how can we approve a July payment if we don't have a contract?
Well, the July payment's not due till the end of July anyway. July 31st.
Okay.
What Ms. Himmel was talking about was the
June
June
payment.
payment.
To release the June payment.
Release
We
the-
can, yes, but I thought she also said we would make the first payment for July.
The conversation at the last board meeting was, at one point, was to prorate the July payment based on the coverage. She's asking you, forget that part of it. If we get the contract, we just make the 12 payments.
Okay. So, you know, I would like to move forward with that, and
I don't have a problem making a motion if you want to do that before we do anything else, or if you want to wait on the June
yeah,
payment.
let's do that. Yep.
So I would make a motion that we tell the superintendent to release the June payment in the remaining amount, 27,000 and change.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Ms. Bryant to approve the June payment to the sheriff's office in full for the $27,531.31. All right. Is there any discussion on this or any questions? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, now the next item we have is the contract for July 1 of 18 through June 30th of 19, which you're working on, Mr. Bradshaw, correct?
And I think we're down to like about one issue in regards to the contract between me and Mr. Batzel as the sheriff's office attorney. And so, that's in regard to a secure locker being located at the schools. I don't want to talk about what may be in, or if you want to talk about anything that may be inside a secure locker that's the sheriff just wants to put there under at his sole expense, then we need to go into a safety and security meeting. Because I know the sheriff does not want to talk about any of that in a public meeting, and I particularly do not want to talk about that either. But it may be easier for us to do that, to go into a safety and security meeting and have a discussion in regards to that, which may resolve all the issues and we can bring the contract back.
Well, and I know you've been working on the contract. We saw a preliminary one, but we haven't seen the latest, which is, how many pages is it now?
25.
25 pages.
The length hasn't changed.
Okay, so one of the questions that I had on what I had seen deals with the contract, Ms. Counts, you said you had a couple questions on the contract.
I had a question on page 13 with the coverage at Crest.
Coverage press will be an SRO there.
Inside the school? Okay.
And there were some other points, though, with the contract on Crest as far as, was there any wording changed on that as far as the operations?
As far as what the operations, as far as Crest is concerned?
As far as Crest is concerned?
Crest will be just like any other school.
Okay.
So
I think it was more, I think the issue there was because of the special needs of the students that are located at Crest to, the same way that we would not want to tell the sheriff how to do the safety and security, they don't want to be involved in the, how to handle those types of kids, or those children, those students, and so, but I think that was one of those things where as someone becomes more familiar with the staff, the students, and everything else, and that part will work itself out.
Because the language I was concerned with, it said, "But shall only be responsible for maintaining a secure perimeter free from trespassers."
That's out.
That's out.
Yes,
That's okay.
You have an early draft.
Yeah, that's.
There's been many since then.
Okay.
I feel a lot better with what the superintendent expressed with regards to the summer school for the remaining of July. I've always believed the sheriff should have the discretion to do what he needs to do on that. That's not been a change on that. So, you know, to me, I thought that was the last kind of sticky point on that, and so I'm hoping we're just moving forward.
Okay. One of the questions I had that deals with the active shooter drills that's in the statute. It deals with law enforcement, you know, conducting those drills and the number of drills and the discussion on how we're going to get that process moving relatively quickly when school starts. Now,
That's not part of the SRO contract.
I know it's not in the contract right now,
Okay.
but it is a big part of what needs to happen is we need to make sure that we are meeting the Senate bill in reference to conducting drills. And so my question is, and maybe that needs to be discussed in closed session too, I wanted to make sure that this board is all on the same page and we have a clear understanding of where we're going with our drills and how we're going to, you know, keep students safe and teachers safe.
Well, I think that the actual nuts and bolts of how an active shooter drill would go would be something we would talk about in a safety and security meeting.
We've had communications in that regard, and we're waiting for the Department of Ed to clarify the number of drills. And as recently as yesterday, I spoke with Sergeant Frink as far as the number, and that we're waiting to hear from DOE on direction on a number of drills.
Right, because obviously in the bill, it talks about that there'll be as many drills for active shooter will be conducted at least as often as other emergency drills.
Correct, yes.
And I know the governor, one of his letters he sent was, I think, once a semester.
We have,
And so,
Department of Ed has not ruled on exactly a number. You're correct, and that's
Right.
exactly how it's worded, but when I called them last week to say, what does that mean, what's your interpretation, They've not made that decision. They're in the
Well,
process of
Do
making
we
a
have to
decision.
wait on their decision? Can't we make that decision on our own?
We have to
as a
make sure
board?
we're compliant. I mean, we could make a decision and then it wouldn't meet what they're telling us we're mandated to do.
Well, if we meet the conditions of at least as many drills as there are other drills, then we're going to be compliant.
And I've heard different interpretations of other drills. People that want to add the fire, the tornado, and the bus as a total number, which I don't believe that's the correct interpretation. That's why we're waiting for DOE's interpretation.
Well,
But
this,
yes, we'll move
yeah.
forward and we can come up with our number, and then if that number doesn't meet, we need to, like you said, we want to work in cooperation with the sheriff's office on that, come up with whatever number we think is appropriate, and then if it doesn't meet the mandate, we can regroup and increase it if we had to.
Well, for instance, I mean, by law, we have to have a fire drill within the first 30 days of school. I mean, I think we need to have an active shooter drill at every school within the first 30 days.
I think
I mean,
everyone
those
would
are things
probably
that I
agree with
want to
that.
make sure
Yes.
there's assurances that we're doing, because we need to prepare students and teachers and administration to react if there were ever to be
We absolutely are in the process of doing that, and we will, yes.
okay. And Sheriff, that's been made clear. I mean, you're in that same, you're in agreement as far as the importance of this. Obviously, I know I've spoken with you a little bit about that, and that you will be, your officers will be a big part of this plan. I mean, you have to conduct those drills. You're statutorily obligated. Okay. And so even though we don't have that in the contract, we're all in agreement here that that's how we're going to proceed.
And just for question,
That may be somewhat different than the SRO who does that type of stuff.
That's correct.
and that's the only thing I was going to ask. Am I correct that there are also additional trainings, not necessarily involving students, but that the sheriff's department does, like in the summers and so forth, that they're constantly preparing for things, not just during those drills that you're referring to. They do their own training in preparation, I believe, so that they're basically, when they come in, they're monitoring what we're doing and they're ready to act on those things. And again, I'm trying to be careful of not saying too much, but just wanting to give the public some assurances. There's more trainings and drilling that's going on behind the scenes than simply what maybe our students and our staff may be interacting with.
Major Linhart and I had opportunity to meet a month or so ago, and their training person was a part of that meeting as well.
Okay. So the question in the contract then that we're dealing with right now is the secure locker. And I am in agreement with Mr. Bradshaw that before we discuss that, we should go into a closed session.
Is there any reason, just because that, in case that takes longer, that the other items could, I mean, almost looks like we're at the end of the agenda, maybe we can just whip through
That's a
those
good
and
idea.
then we can adjourn and then go into that closed section, and then we're,
That's a good idea. What else? we
it's
have?
just the thought. I think we're at item 5. No, I'm sorry, item M. It was added, 4M. The
Yes.
other sites
Yes.
with Citrus and WTC.
We're at 4. Okay, and just out of respect, Sheriff,
Yeah,
are you good with that? I mean, with saying, will you be able to stay here until we get?
We'll try and whip through this real quick.
All right, very good. Okay, so we're at item M. We're going to move to item M, and that is approved affiliation between the Citrus County School Board with Cooch State College and Seven Rivers Medical Center. Dr. Hebert.
I'm asking for approval of the affiliation agreement with the school board and with Lacoochee Technical College, Seven Rivers Medical Center.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Bryant, second by Mr. Kennedy, to move approval on the affiliation agreement. Is there any other discussion? Questions? No questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Okay, we're going to go to,
4-0.
I'm sorry, 4-0.
I just wanted to make sure I don't ever get to correct you. You're always on top.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, you're doing your job. That's awesome. Okay, so next we're going to go to Roman numeral number 5, School Support Services. Mr. Bishop, and we have Human Resources up with Ms. Swain.
Good afternoon. I ask the board's approval of the instructional and support recommendations as listed on the goldenrod.
Move approval of the superintendent's recommendations as listed on the goldenrod for personnel and support.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Count, second by Ms. Bryant to approve the instructional support recommendations. Are there any questions?
Oh, but we have one announcement.
Susie's gonna recommend.
We have a brand new assistant principal sitting in our audience that we probably should recognize. It was approved last month. Mrs. Bays with Canto Primary.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Bays, it's good to see you here today. Thank you for coming to the meeting.
You were on the last goldenrod.
Did you have, was there anything else, Ms. Swain?
No.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Ms. Bays,
4-0.
I'm 4-0. Ms. Bays, I'm gonna ask you to come up to the microphone here in just a minute because that's
Do you have a
chairman's privilege.
speech?
But we are at a time certain for public comment. So do we have any comment cards for our public comment?
No,
Is there anyone wishing to address the board?
but I can wait until after your closed session.
That's fine. If you like to do that, have you filled out a card yet?
I
or-
have not, so I'll
Okay.
fill out one and I'll wait,
Okay, that would be fine.
just
That
to
would-
move
yeah.
things along.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, all right, Ms. Bays, come on up here. We really appreciate you coming out to this meeting, and I'm sure that you have an interest in what goes on with this board. But tell us a little bit about what the future holds for you and how things are going in your new position.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I'm very excited. I've just completed my 15th year in education. I've taught everything from kindergarten, 3rd grade, 5th grade. I was an administrator in Lake County previously, but when I came to Citrus County, I wanted to get back into the classroom, see what it was all about. I'm so glad I did. I've been at LeCanto Primary for the past 3 years, and I get to stay there now as an administrator, and I'm just very excited.
Till Miss Himmel moves you.
For now, yeah, we're for Citrus County Schools, not LeCanto. But for now, I'm very dedicated to Miss Lofton and the school. I'm very excited. And I hope to continue my path in administration and, finish out my career here.
Great. And Ms. Bays, I've had a chance to be in your classroom and
Yes, you have.
You are an amazing educator. You are not just a leader, but you are a model. So thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you very much. It was an honor having you in.
Oh, no.
All right, well, thank you for coming up. We appreciate it, and we wish you the best in your position.
Thank you.
Miss Bates?
Thank you.
And for those who don't know, Captain Bays does an amazing job for those looking for a fishing tour.
Raises a lot of money.
Yes, he does.
All right, next up is Planning and Growth Management, Mr. Dixon.
Good afternoon, board members.
No.
Approximately at the beginning of 2017, we were notified that our longtime policy consultant was retiring and selling his business to North Florida Regional Council, or NEFAC, and essentially we had some concerns at the time because of how good that relationship has been for so many years and how reliant we are on EMCS. But basically what's happening is that the system is just being transferred to NEFAC. They will still maintain the same database, the same process, it'll be the same price. It's a consortium, so it's a government entity, and I think work product will eventually be just as good. The alternatives are much more costly and less secure in terms of the work products and how much we would potentially spend. So we can always, if it doesn't work out, I think we could always do the other alternative and spend more money. But at this time, I would recommend that we just stay with the system that we're using and see how it goes. I have a lot of confidence after visiting that they have the resources to continue the work product, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. I think in my memorandum that I sent you, I laid out all the details.
Right. When you say stick with the same, it's that company is being taken over by NEFAC.
Yes, NEFAC provides services to a large number of rural school districts, the largest of which can be 24,000 students, but the current one is Flagler County, it's about 14,000 students. So we would be one of the larger counties that they would be providing services to, but they have used EMCS since the beginning. So essentially they have the whole database of every recommendation that's ever been made by EMCS, which is a really good resource for us because that's who we've used since the beginning. And we would own our own policy manual. We would still be able to maintain it and update it, change it as we see fit. And you know, there have been many times where we've had issues that have come up that have been new, and we've relied on EMCS for guidance, but they don't necessarily have a history for eating like e-cigarettes and you know things that are new that just come on the horizon that we have to deal with as time goes on. And after talking to Mr. Starling up at EMCS, I think the intent is to continue providing that level of service. They're just in the process now of hiring staff to do that, and we would be working with them. We would be their largest client in the policy area, but I have a lot of faith that it's going to be the same product in a year or two.
Unlike other districts, we don't rely solely on that venue to review our policies. We have a committee in place. The board chair sits on that committee. We have a process in place by which we're constantly reviewing policies and bringing those back to the school board for review and approval. So we're in better shape than some districts are when it comes to that respect.
We'll stay on top of it.
And this is an option that will also allow us, won't lock us in. If we don't like it after a year, we can certainly look for other options. We're not locked in because we still have our own policy manual. We still own it.
So this is not an agenda item to vote on, though. It's just an update, correct, Mr. Dixon?
Yes, just to let you know what the situation is and what the intent is, and then if you have no objections, that's the path we'll stay on.
Okay.
And I learned something at board meetings for state down in Tampa. It's called Scribner's error. And we can correct their pronoun antecedent agreements when they make mistakes.
Yes, and we do.
And we do.
And we will.
And board members, as we talk to FSBA, one of the things that I've tried to encourage them to do is at the Florida School Board Association is look to have a policy database. Other state associations have one where you can say, okay, for counties of like size, can you send me the policies regarding? It would be very helpful, especially to ones our size, because again, the other options are quite expensive that we have to consider. So just a conversation when we talk to our leaders up there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is under Section 6, Finance, Mr. Mullen. E, approved renewal of the iPad repair services Citrus Cellular phones as primary and iFixture iCore as alternate. So I pulled this because I had a couple questions on that. In regards to the primary and the alternate, I noticed on the bid sheet, the iPad Air 2 is under iFixture iCore was cheaper than the other iPads for the primary, which is Citrus Cellular phones. And then I noticed that we did have 6 bids, which I do like to see a bid selection,
Yeah.
because we don't always get that. But obviously there were some reasons there that we said alternate, and I just want to make sure we're talking about $50,000. So that's quite a bit of money when we talk about repairing devices, and I want to make sure we're using that wisely. And I know from Dr. Geddes when he was here, some items just weren't worth repairing, and so there were decisions made on that. I wanted to know how we're going to determine the primary and alternate. If we need something fixed and the primary one is busy, like too many weeks out, then we would go to the alternate even though they're more expensive? Or
And that's what we did. That's what we did this year. We actually used both.
Yes.
When the primary, which is a local vendor, was not able to meet up the demand whenever we're turning in 70 or 80 iPads at one time, so they would go to the alternate, and that's the way the bid's structured, so that we're able to do that. But our primary goal is to go with the primary local vendor, and as you pointed out, the cost, if you look at the grand totals, there's not a great deal of difference there between the two. But if he can't keep up with the volume and Kathy Androsky's going to be meeting with him if this gets approved, and review what type of volume he's able to do. If he can't meet that volume, then we can go with the alternative on the list.
Right, I guess, the big difference was that cracked screen on an iPad Air 2, which was a $60 difference. And that's what gave iFixture iCore, gave it a pretty big advantage, right? And gave the price of $149.99 versus $209. So if there's a cracked screen on an iPad Air 2, does that go to iFixture iCore, or would that not necessarily go to them?
We try, everything goes to the primary.
Everything goes to the primary. And unless they can't get it fixed.
They can't meet the demand, which is what happened in February when we had a big rush of repairs.
And serving on the technology committee, that was exactly what the challenge was at the school level, is they had devices they needed to get repaired and they couldn't get them back from that particular vendor. The vendor's really gone out of their way, from what I understand, to try and work, but we actually gave them so much business that it actually, but they actually, I believe, even purchased specialized equipment to try and help improve their situation.
This bid was awarded based on the total, so it's not we can't just pick line items.
I got you, boss. Well, that was part of my question. Obviously, the total is less than iFixture iCore, but in that one area it was highlighted, so that's why I just wanted to make sure I understood our process. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the renewal of the 2017-36 Apple iPad repair services to Citrus Cellular Phones Incorporated as a primary and Fixture Corp as an alternate.
Second.
All right, motion by Ms. Bryant, second by Mr. Kennedy to approve renewal of the repair services as mentioned. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, budget update.
Good afternoon. All right, so just basically wanted to update you on where we are at. Our numbers have not changed at this point versus what Mr. Mullen presented to you, which I'm very grateful he did. I watched him on the monitor and made sure he did a good job. So I did not want to get you guys sick. It was terrible. So anyway, we are having an HR push on Friday. This push will probably be larger than the last one because we're getting more and more people in place. Positions have rolled into the new year now. We're into the new year budget. And so expect that the fund balance that you were presented to go down some, but we should still be within our 3.5. We should still be good from what I'm seeing and what Susie and I discussed yesterday. I will have a tentative budget book prepared for you by Wednesday, July 25th, I think, if I looked at the calendar right. Mr. Kennedy, yours will come digitally, of course.
Thank you.
It will be advertised in the paper that following Saturday, the 28th, and then we will vote on it on July 31st. So you will have it the Wednesday before, and if you have any questions, I will be available.
And that meeting on the 31st is typically at 5 o'clock, I believe, or 5:30?
5:30 is the public vote, or your vote for the public part.
We will have to decide, we can do this later, but we'll have to decide what time we're going to meet, because that's generally a workshop day, if we need to workshop anything, so we may want to meet before then. Okay, yeah. All right.
My feeling is just flexibility. I mean, whatever works.
If we have any.
We can
If we have
accommodate.
anything, yeah. But if not, we have to have the meeting on
Right.
the 31st. Okay, on the 31st. Okay.
Yes, sir. That's it.
So you'll have that to us a week prior,
On the Wednesday.
on the 25th?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Any questions?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Kennedy brought up a good idea as far as allowing our citizen comments now and not make you wait. So if you would like to come on up. Yes, come on up and give us your name. Have you filled out a card?
No, these were
That's-
unplanned comments.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Just give us your name and your where you reside.
Leslie Barris, Inverness, and these were unplanned comments based on the K-12 agenda item. Based on the discussion I heard, and this was my first introduction to it, I am very much opposed to the concept. I think Chairman Dodd and Mr. Kennedy's comments and questions were spot on, and I'm all for innovation and creativity when they provide a direct educational and instructional benefit to the students of this county, and this concept does not do that. I do think that there are very significant staff and administrative time burdens. They were way too breezily dismissed. I was a consultant for a number of years. That was very breezy. You know there will be an impact to the staff. But tasking the staff and administration with fundraising thoughts is also a burden. And so my suggestion is maybe broadening the thinking and participation to a citizen advisory committee to help as an ongoing matter. I don't recommend that unless I'm willing to volunteer, and I'm willing to volunteer. So I know I will have to fill out a card now. And I think it really raises a number of very interesting legal implications, such as venue. To my knowledge, you cannot contractually bind a parent in another county to venue in this county if they are not a direct signatory of that contract. So I don't know how you don't get into potential venue challenges all over the state, which is going to cost attorney's fees. Likely you would be successful in bringing it back here, but it's still going to cost money, and are they willing to bear those costs? I am glad to hear that they're publicly traded. I will spend time on the Securities and Exchange Commission database looking at their financials. So I think that, I get a sense that you have, from my perspective as a taxpayer, the right concerns, due diligence questions. I'd just like for you to take a pass this year in particular. There's not that much time left, really, and they may be experienced at ramp-ups, but still, it does take time, and it takes time on your staff. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness in approaching this concept.
Thank you very much. Okay, next item, I believe, if is all right with you, Mr. Bradshaw, that we do our closed session now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That would be the one thing I have.
Okay, all right, very good. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and recess the public meeting, and I'm going to open up a closed session for safety and security, and I am going to have to ask the audience to leave.